Hello and welcome once again to CEBL Weekly, your weekly rip around the Canadian Elite Basketball League. I'm your host, Sean Woodley. Thanks so much for being here once again on CEBL Plus and on the CEBL's YouTube channel. Please subscribe and leave a comment, would ya? We got a great show coming up this week as we have an interview with Ryan Schmidt, head coach of the 7-3 Hamilton Honey Badgers, who had their #1 seed in the league upset and taken away by the Fraser Valley Bandits. Could that also apply to the power rankings, the #1 spot that they've held for the last 2 weeks? We'll examine that on today's show as well. Plus, tonight, Monday, the time of recording, the 50th game in the CEBL season gets played, meaning we are halfway through this sprint to the finish. And that also means we're going to take a look at the halfway awards winners, at least in the eyes of myself and some folks around the league who I have canvassed. We'll dig into the front runners right now for most outstanding player, most outstanding Canadian, and defensive player of the year. You're not going to want to miss that. On top of all that, we've got my game of the week and the calendar check teeing you up for the next 7 days of CEBL action. We've got some bangers on the calendar between now and the next time we chat. But before we get to all that, I just want to share my thoughts on what has been a fantastic week for Canadian basketball. Of course, it began at the NBA draft with 2 Canadians, Ben Mathurin at the Pacers at #6 and Shaedon Sharpe to the Blazers at #7, going in the top 10 of the NBA draft. First time that's happened in quite a while. And then, of course, you had the 3-on-3 silver medal won by the women at the World Cup for 3-on-3, an event that I think is going to become pretty darn popular in these parts, especially with how well the Canadians seem to perform. On top of that, you have 7 Canadians invited to Team Canada's men's camp to prepare for their FIBA qualifiers starting this weekend who have CEBL experience. JV Mukama, Aaron Best, Trey Bell-Haynes, Kyle Alexander, Phil and Thomas Scrub, along with Cassius Robertson, will all be part of the crew alongside NBA talents like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, getting ready for the games they have over the course of the weekend to prepare for the FIBA World Cup. It's all very exciting stuff, and for me, someone who's been part of this league since 2019 in some capacity, I'm just so happy and thrilled and satisfied to see the CEBL be both a benefactor and an engine of what Canada basketball's got going on right now. You've got talent who's getting an opportunity to play all summer long. It's becoming a place where talented guys want to come to play in the summer. It's all part of a wonderful, wonderful system it seems Canada basketball has in place, and I couldn't be more thrilled for what we're going to see on Friday at First Ontario Centre as Canada takes on the Dominican Republic with some Canada basketball and CEBL celebrities certainly on hand. Hamilton Honey Badgers head coach Ryan Schmidt is now in his 3rd season at the helm for the Honey Badgers, and he's had a lot of success in that time, although he's not been able to quite burst through and win that elusive championship. I caught up with Ryan Schmidt this week to chat about how the season has gone, how they've raced out to such a great start in Hamilton, and what he's looking forward to down the back part of the season as they look to win Hamilton's first ever CEBL championship. With me on CEBL Weekly is the head coach of the 7-3 Hamilton Honey Badgers, who have been once again one of the better teams in the CEBL. It's Ryan Schmidt. Ryan, how's it going, man?
I'm good, Sean. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Really happy to have you here today. And I guess the question I have for you, you're in your 3rd year now coaching in the CEBL. This is kind of your first full season to work with, a full sort of runway here, considering the abbreviated year last season, of course, the summer series in your first year with the team. How much different has the experience of coaching the team over the course of this longer runway where there's probably more practice time than you've ever had with the team? How has that sort of helped you in your job? How has it changed things from the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's been fun, and I think you've alluded to it earlier. You go from year one; it was a summer series, which was what, a 3-week, 8 games, and then last year was 14 games, kind of condensed into 2 months. So yeah, I've been looking forward to this year, or this season, I should say, all year long, and it's been a nice progression for me because it has, each year has been more games, there's been more time. So obviously, I feel a lot more comfortable, as a head coach. What we've built as an organization over the last few years, myself, John Lashway and Jermaine, and having a lot of our staff returning on the coaching side. So it's been fun. And I think just, being able to have more time, like you said, having more practice time, having a more, not just a longer season, but I think also more of a traditional season where you're playing everyone home and away, with the exception of, for us, it's Scarborough and Guelph, we see 3 times, and a 20-game season. I think it's again something where it's enjoyable because I think over the course of the season, you're starting to see, obviously there's a lot of parity in the league. But the chance when you got a chance to play everybody the equal amount of times, it's been fun.
You mentioned the parity, and I would say right now there are probably 7 teams that you could tell me they win the championship in August, and I would believe you because it's just that loaded right now. Just from your perspective, coaching against other teams throughout the league, is this the most talent you've seen in the league so far in your time in the CEBL?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it was cool too. Like over the course of the winter and spring, when you would see the transaction emails come through and some of the signings that these teams would have, and it just each year it keeps getting better and better. And to me though, it starts with the domestic players, and the Canadian talent is really high, and you've got a lot of high level guys that have decided to play in it. And then when you are able to add the imports along with the new international import rule, has made it really it's been cool to see. Just again, like to your point, the level of talent is increasing year to year, and now with 10 teams in, and you would think at some point it might dilute it a little bit with 10 teams, but it's actually done the exact opposite. I think a lot of teams have just really kind of continue to load up, which makes it fun as a competitor for both as a with the players and then us as coaches. That's what you want in a summer season where you want an opportunity to get better and to grow. And just from a talent standpoint, I could say the same thing from the coaching. Bringing in Dean Demopoulos and Mike Taylor. You look at those guys' resumes and it's beyond impressive. So a chance to be able to go and coach against those guys and learn from them and have conversations, it's been fun.
I have to ask you though. So July's coming up here. Summer League. This is the time of year where some guys might head down there. You got lots of guys with G League experience from Christian Vital, Jeremiah Tillman Jr. Of course, Caleb Agata has been a Summer League guy in the past 2. Are you expecting to lose some guys for the couple of weeks there as Summer League ratchets up here? And how, as a coach, do you prepare for that potential hit? As you have the stretch run of the season here to go, still 10 games left. How does Summer League kind of hang over all this for you?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and we will. Christian and Jeremiah both will be leaving. So Jeremiah will be with Orlando Magic, and then Christian, ironically, is going to be with the Toronto Raptors.
Love it.
which ended up happening. It was funny story there. We played Scarborough the first time, and he had a major game. And Dan Tolzman, amongst other front office people with the Raptors, who I'm obviously very familiar with, approached me after the game and hey, we really like Christian. We're thinking about bringing him to Summer League, and obviously you're happy for the guy, but in the back of your mind, I'm like, that means we're gonna lose him. So
he's busy, he's sick.
Yeah. So he'll be with them, and no, we're excited for them. Obviously, as Sean, that's a big part of this league is creating opportunities and providing a platform for these guys to hopefully move on and get that next step. So the nice thing is that last year it was tough because Summer League was really kind of towards the tail end of the season, if I remember correctly. Where this year it's kind of falls. We're in that, I guess, I think we'll have about 5 or 6 games remaining when they come back. But to get to the point as far as how do we kind of get through it? That was a big thing where Jermaine and I were working on the roster, this spring or I guess winter and spring was, getting depth, knowing that in the summer opportunities do arise whether it's with national teams or it's with summer leagues or guys are going to be brought in for workouts, which we've Christian and Kobe have both left us for a couple or I think a game each for workouts with their respective NBA teams. And so for us, I think you're going to see some opportunities for Kobe McEwen be able to step up and have a big role. We just got Aaron Best back which we lost him to the national team stuff, but that's a short window. So getting him, having Caleb, I think Martin coming in off the ankle injury. So I just think for us, it's going to be, not to be too cliche, but the next man up mentality. But again, I feel like we have a really deep roster, and now with those two being gone, I think it just provides opportunity for some others.
Well, Ryan, really appreciate you taking the time. Looking forward to seeing how the Honey Badgers cope over the next few weeks with some key departures for Summer League, hopefully returning well in time for the postseason to take place. But I really appreciate it. Best of luck the rest of the way.
I appreciate it, Sean. Thank you.
No one man should have all this power, but the bosses at the CEBL keep on giving it to me, so you just gotta deal with it. It's power rankings time once again, where I rank the teams in the league 10 through 1 based on how they're playing right now, and if anyone's made me angry over the last 7 days. If you have any disagreements, feel free to DM them to me on Twitter @AunchSanyal. I'll definitely see that. Number 10, let's go with the Montreal Alliance to start things off. Montreal doesn't have the worst record in the league right now, but their current level of play is definitely below what we're seeing from the Blackjacks and Growlers, who find themselves behind Montreal in the standings. It's now 6 straight losses on the books for the Alliance, who now sit 3 games out of a playoff spot with just 9 games to play, so there's still some time, but not a whole heck of a lot of it for Montreal. In the 9th spot, we have the Newfoundland Growlers, who I feel so bad for. It wasn't terribly fair of me, in fairness, to predict a win for the Growlers in their only game this week, especially considering who their opponent was, a Fraser Valley squad that were still just a few spots away from covering this week. But they almost pulled it off anyway, and alas, despite leading through most of their game out in Langley on Sunday, the Growlers' first win of the season slipped away in the closing moments of Elam time, and it's a huge bummer. They're now staring down an 0-8 record. 5 of those losses have come by single digits, and 3 of them have come down to last bucket win situations. They are not far off from having like 3 or 4 wins on the ledger. At number 8, we have the Ottawa Blackjacks, who picked up a nice win this week over the Edmonton Stingers to move to 2-7, and it feels like this team is figuring itself out and who the most reliable guys are. You've got Walt Lemon Jr. and Deng Adele, an awesome and rock-solid combo, but now, with Adele returning from injury, you've got other guys coming into their roles, from a defensive ace Maxime Borsico to walking double-double threat Jackson Rowe, and a rejuvenated Chad Posthumus, who's bounced back nicely from a brief slump a couple weeks back. A second-half turnaround for this year's championship weekend host seems entirely on the table. In the 7th spot, we have the Guelph Nighthawks, who lost to Edmonton this past week for their 2nd straight loss after rattling off 5 straight before that, and they nearly claimed a top spot in last week's ranking. However, a loss to Edmonton does mean they have to be behind Edmonton for now, but being 7th in a league that has 7 undeniably good teams right now isn't really anything to be ashamed of. They also could be in line for a huge leap soon, as former Toronto Raptors fan favorite Lucas Bebe Nogueira is set to join the team this week. It's Bebe! We love Bebe! This is awesome! At number 6, we have the Edmonton Stingers, and the Stingers continue to spin their wheels this week, picking up a win over the surging Nighthawks after dropping a game to the not-so-surging Ottawa Blackjacks. I can't really figure this team out, I'm not going to lie. I know they're deep, I know they're talented, I know they have championship pedigree. Maybe the recent arrival of import DeMarco Dickerson will help the team take a bit of a more defined shape, but for now, middle of the pack seems about right for this Edmonton team. Moving into the upper half, at number 5, we have the Saskatchewan Rattlers, who are 5-4 after picking up a business-like, never-in-doubt win over Montreal at home on Sunday. And if it's true that talent wins out more often than not in basketball, the Rattlers are in pretty good shape. Tony Carr, Scotty Lindsay, and Malik Ben-Levy might be the best trio of American import players in the CEBL, although Guelph certainly has a claim to that status as well. This team also shoots the freaking lights out. 7 Rattlers have attempted at least 1 3 a game this year. Every single one of them is connecting at a 36% or better clip. As a team, Saskatchewan's hitting 40.6% of its triples, 3 percentage points higher than the next best team. That is certainly a recipe for winning. In number 4, we have Scarborough making their high appearance, and don't look now, but the talent-laden Shooting Stars are one of the hottest teams in the CEBL. They've won 4 of their last 5, including a huge Elam time comeback win over the Hamilton Honey Badgers at the Toronto Pan Am Centre on Saturday. They'll be tested this week to come, though, as JV Mukama and Kyle Alexander are both among those tabbed to join Team Canada's national team training camp this week. At number 3, we have the Hamilton Honey Badgers. Consecutive losses at the hands of the Nighthawks and the Shooting Stars dropped the 7-3 Honey Badgers down to the 3rd spot this week, ending their 2-week run atop the rankings. Hamilton was without Caleb Bagata in the loss to Scarborough, something they might have to get used to if the call to NBA Summer League comes at any point here, but they did finally see the debut of Aaron Best on Sunday as well. He'll be on national team duty this week, but he figures to be some excellent insurance for Coach Ryan Schmidt if Agata or star import Christian Vital is off to Vegas for a couple weeks sometime soon. At number 2, we have the 7-3 Niagara River Lions, who have not lost a game since their complete meltdown against the Rattlers in the 4th quarter at home. a couple weeks back, and they're proving to be a team without a real weak link in their rotation. Khalil Ahmad sits 6th in the league in scoring and 3rd in assists per game to lead the way on the team. And while they are set to lose Phil Scrubb for a little bit of national team duty this week, this is a team without a real weak link in the rotation, and having Jalen Bab Harrison, Daniel Walden-Mullings, and Munis Tutu as your 3rd, 4th, and 5th guards is a pretty good fallback for Vic Rouzo to have. And of course, his team started the year without Scrubb as well and fared just fine. And in the top spot, it's the Fraser Valley Bandits for the first time since week 1 of the season, after they handed a red-hot Nighthawks team its first loss in 16 days with a 5-point victory last Tuesday. And they got some love last week for their Canadian content and how well they played so far this year. And then GM Kyle Julius went out and upped the CanCon quotient even more with the addition of former Boston College big man James Karnick, who's averaging 15.5 points, 8 boards on 71% shooting from the floor through his first 3 outings with the Bandits. The Bandits sit number 1 for now at 8-2. We shall see if they can become the second team to repeat as number 1 next week. With half of the CEBL schedule now played, it's time to take a look at who the frontrunners are for the major awards in the CEBL through 50 total games of action, with 50 still to go. We'll start with the 3 big awards: the Most Outstanding Player, the Defensive Player of the Year, and Canadian of the Year, with a full list of awards examined a little bit later on in the season. Let's start with the big one, the Most Outstanding Player, which has only been won by one person in the history of the league, and of course that's Xavier Moon, who's not around anymore, and it's left behind a wide open race for that Most Outstanding Player nod. You could probably name 6 or 7 guys here who will have a case to be named here, but I have 3 in mind who have kind of risen above the rest. At number 3, I have Caleb Agata of the Hamilton Honey Batters, who until last week were the number 1 team in the CEBL for a good 3 weeks running. And Agata's been everywhere for this team. 14 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. It feels like he's flirting with a triple-double every single night. And for me, when I'm trying to figure out who the most outstanding player is, I'm not necessarily just going to the points or the record. Who has the biggest overall impact on the floor? And to me, Agata's had that huge impact on a team that's won a whole lot of games. He's number 3 for me. The same argument applies for who I have at number 2 and number 1. At number 2, I have Tony Carr of the Saskatchewan Rattlers, who's averaged 19 points, 6 boards, and 6 assists. He's shooting 39% from downtown, and he has had his fingerprints all over everything that's happened with this Rattlers team. He's been used as a post option. He's been used as a high pick and roll ball handler. He's been used as an ISO player as well. He's been everywhere for Dean Demopoulos' squad, and for me is pretty clearly number 2 on this list, with a very real case for number 1. We'll see how the season wraps up. At number 1, it's a guy who I think should have been in the conversation last year and was, although he wasn't a finalist. It's Cat Barber from the Guelph Nighthawks, who is just always there when the Nighthawks need him most. He's hitting Elam-ending winners all over the place. He has the ball in his hands more than anybody else on the team, and he is such a clutch performer when it matters most. The mid-range game has been on point, and he's averaging 5 assists to go along with his 20 points and 3 boards a game. And I pulled a lot of folks around the league coming into this segment just so I'm not kind of just going off the cuff with uninformed takes. And by and large, the consensus pick here for league MVP has been Cat Barber through the first half of the season. Next up, we have the Canadian of the Year, and I may have just spoiled who I think I have number 1 in that MVP conversation, but the field for this award is stacked. You can look around the league and pull 1 or 2 Canadians from every squad and say, yeah, that guy's the best Canadian on any given day in the CEBL. You got Fraser Valley, for example, just loaded with excellent Canadians, and it's hard to even pin down one. If I did have to, though, I might say Thomas Kennedy's the guy. The dude can't miss. He's been one of the most efficient scorers in the CEBL this season. And if he doesn't win Canadian of the Year, he's a shoo-in to win U Sports Player of the Year either way. In the second spot, it's really tough for me to whittle down. I had to have Kennedy, so I had some Fraser Valley contingent there because of how good their Canadians have been. But there have been a lot of solo Canadians doing fantastic work this season as well. You've got Jordan Baker doing Jordan Baker things as he usually does, filling up the stat sheet for Edmonton. Devontae Bandu's been fantastic as a wonderful role player who's hit some big-time shots for the Rattlers. But for me, number 2 is AJ Lawson of the Guelph Nighthawks. And no, he doesn't have the ball in his hands the way Cat Barber does for this Guelph team, or even Ahmed Hill. but he is always there screaming down the wings in transition to make the Nighthawks the most deadly transition team in the CEBL. And he's also there on the receiving end of a whole lot of Cat Barber drive and kick as well. He's been a fantastic high-volume three-point shooter. He's averaging north of 13 points a game. For me, AJ Lawson is the number 2 runner in this conversation as it stands right now. At number 1, it's Caleb Agata. I just told you all that's so great about Caleb Agata, but he's just fantastic and has been such an important person for what the Honey Badgers have done so far this season. Really not too much argument here. I would hope from anybody out there who's watched even a single Honey Badgers game this season, Agata's the truth. And then we have the Defensive Player of the Year, which is the most difficult award to hand out just because there's so much that goes into defense that silly little gas bags like me don't understand. And so I've tried to base this opinion on what I've heard from around the league the most. Lots of different names came in when I asked for who the best defender in the CEBL was from various execs, broadcasters, and coaches throughout the league, but a few names came up more often than not. Jordan Baker was there quite a bit. He's probably just off my ballot at number 4. At number 3, I have EJ Onu from the Niagara River Lions, who of course has been dazzling this season, leading the league in blocks and basically lapping the field in that department all season long. He's been ridiculous, and you can't underestimate the psychological impact that he has on any sort of would-be driver who thinks about going into the paint against that ridiculous wingspan. In the second spot, I have Maxim Borsico of the Ottawa Blackjacks, a guy whose name came up a whole lot when I canvassed folks around the CEBL. And his name came up from both people in Ottawa and people outside of Ottawa, so I know those Blackjacks faithful aren't just picking their own guy to pick their own guy. In fact, someone with the River Lions told me that Borsico was the only guy who's really given Khalil Ahmad, one of the best ball handlers in the CEBL, a lick of trouble all season long. In Ottawa's last win over Edmonton, he had 3 steals and 2 blocks. He stuffs the stat sheet and often guards the opposing team's best player. Maxim Borsico is for sure number 2 for me right now. And at number 1, you might be surprised this isn't EJ Onu because of the block totals, but in fact, the name who came up the most when I asked who the best defender in the league was is Onu's teammate, Munis Tutu, who is an absolute monster of on-ball defense. He's the only guy I've seen all year give Cat Barber trouble in a game they won in Guelph, and he has been a menace all season long at the point of attack. Look, big men often get the love in this award, as they probably should, considering they clean up the messes everyone else creates. But Munis Tutu doesn't leave any messes behind for EJ Onu to clean up. He's an incredible on-ball defender, and for me, is my Defensive Player of the Year through 10 games. Time now for my Game of the Week, that 1 2-hour block you simply must carve out if you, like most people, are very busy and just can't watch CEBL hoops every single night. This is the one for you. On Friday night, 10:30 Eastern Time, 7:30 local, the Fraser Valley Bandits host the Scarborough Shooting Stars at the Langley Event Center in a battle of 2 of the hottest teams in the CEBL. The Bandits, at the time of recording, have won 5 consecutive games. The Shooting Stars have won 4 of 5, and Jalen Harris is heating up alongside Cam Chapman and the rest of the group they've got going there in Scarborough. It should be a blast as Fraser Valley looks to cement themselves atop the power rankings, with Scarborough kind of sneakily not so far off from a top 1 or 2 billing themselves, especially if they can pull off a big win in that raucous gym in Langley on Friday night. And hey, best part of this, it can cap a lovely doubleheader for you. There's another CBL game that night too, but you can also tune in and watch Canada take on the Dominican Republic around 7 o'clock, and then just calmly slide over on the dial to watch yourself some Fraser Valley and Scarborough for your nightcap. So while the Game of the Week is for those who have busy and fulfilling lives with lots of things going on, this segment's for the real heads who love to sit on the couch and do nothing but watch hoop. It is your calendar check. Here's what we got on tap in the CEBL over the course of the next 7 days with some big matchups to key in on. Things get rolling with a doubleheader on Thursday night. First up in Hamilton, it is the 3rd installment of the Battle of Highway 6 so far this year, as the Honey Badgers host the Guelph Nighthawks in what could be the debut of Lucas Bebe Noguera with Guelph. This one, of course, will decide the season series, currently split 1-1 between Hamilton and Guelph. That's followed up at 9 p.m. Eastern, 7 Mountain, by the Edmonton Stingers taking on the Newfoundland Growlers, as the Growlers look to hang on to any slight sliver of playoff hopes they might have left, and the Stingers look to gain some solid ground after kind of treading water in recent weeks. On Friday, another couple games for you as the Saskatchewan Rattlers host the Niagara River Lions in a talent-loaded matchup out in Saskatchewan. That one goes down at 7 p.m. Central. And then the nightcap, that is that Fraser Valley Scarborough game, your game of the week at 7:30 p.m. local time out in Langley. On Saturday, it's a solo game as the Hamilton Honey Badgers host the Ottawa Blackjacks in a big-time matchup between a Honey Badgers team looking to keep ground with the Bandits as Ottawa looks to turn their season around after a rough start. As we mentioned earlier on in the power rankings, they seem like they might have the juice to get on a bit of a run here. Then on Sunday, it's a triple header to whet your appetite. You got nothing else you got to do that day. 2 p.m. Eastern, the Shooting Stars take on the Montreal Alliance in Toronto at the Pan Am Sports Center in the first matchup of the day. Then at 1 p.m. Pacific Time, 4 p.m. Eastern, the Fraser Valley Bandits host the Niagara River Lions in an absolute monster of a matchup between two teams with eyes on number one. That all rounds out with a game out in Newfoundland at 7:30 p.m. Newfoundland time as the Growlers host the visiting Saskatchewan Rattlers. Then on Tuesday, the week closes out as the Growlers finish off a busy week with a game against the very, very good Fraser Valley Bandits. And that'll do it for another edition of CEBL Weekly here on CEBL Plus. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. In case you missed it, CEBL Mobile, the official app of the CEBL, is now available for all iOS and Android devices. You can download now and follow your favorite teams and players, as well as watch every single game for free. Also, don't forget to follow us at CEB League on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for all the latest news, updates, and honestly, some pretty fantastic content as well. And CEBL Championship Weekend is here, and our nation's capital is the host August 10th to 14th, and tournament packs are now available. Go get your tickets at cebl.ca. For all other info, cebl.ca is the place to go as well. For Director Jamie Tan and Editor Shariar Shockett, I'm Sean Woodley. We'll talk to you again next week. Enjoy the games.